welcome to Pitched In. My name is Nkokeli, but you can call me Nkox, and this is...
Tyson Mulimela.
Is that what you're going to go by?
Tyson Mulimela is my name.
No AKAs.
No AKA, my AKA is good enough. It's Tyson.
Got you. So Tyson and Nkox are going to be giving you Pitched In hopefully every week. We don't know how long how often we're going to actually release an episode.
Yeah.
It's something that we're trying out, and we're quite passionate about football. Brought us together, and we decided let's actually do something about it. Are you ready?
Yeah, definitely ready. I think this is long overdue. I think you guys really need this type of content. You need this content from South Africans watching the Premier League and getting into the nitty-gritties of it from your perspective.
Disclaimer, you don't need to guess which team Tyson is supporting. On my end, I'm a proud Man United fan. Despite the turbulence so far, it's been a long turbulence, might I add. Yeah. I'm a Man United fan, just a disclaimer, so that you know. However, we're going to keep it very neutral at times, and we will admit to some bias every now and again.
Well, I will say there will be some bias, but the true fact is that if you have any sort of ball knowledge, you know that there are some objective truths that are inescapable. But here, we want to talk about the things that are in the gray area.
Okay. Let's get into it, man. First conversation. What are we doing?
Signing of the season.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Before actually we get into that, we're doing a season wrap. So we're basically looking at this past season, the highs, the lows, everything that has been happening. It's been quite an interesting season, I'll give it that. So we're basically doing a season wrap, and you can share with us in the comments as to some of the things maybe we might have missed that you felt we should have spoken about. Share your opinions on some of the discussions that we're going to be having, basically. So yeah, let's chip in. Signing off the season. I have a couple of names here. You want to start?
Well, I definitely want you to jump in the comments and let us know who you think is the signing of the season. But this one is very, very tricky. There's a lot of really, really good names on the list. We have Dean Huijsen. I mean, come on, man. This kid is insane. He's just literally come through at his very young age. And
hard to believe he was signed for 12 million euros.
Blew the Premier League away. And now he's sitting comfy in Madrid. You know what I mean? So for me, I think Dean Huijsen is definitely in that list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Elliot Anderson, right? I think he's also a name that we can actually talk about, considering he was a reject at Newcastle. Yeah. I don't even think anyone was even speaking about him. Let's just be honest. I think he's done pretty well at Forest. And I think judging by how Forest have done this past season, you definitely have to allude to the defensive work a lot. I know the attack was quite good.
Yeah.
So, guys like Elliot Anderson definitely deserve a shout for signing of the season. Another name?
So for me, with the Elliot Anderson argument, I do see it. Mm-hmm. But I do feel that there is just a lot of other players that are picking up, that are kind of performing on his behalf, in a sense. Let's put it that way.
Okay, he's sort of masked very well.
Yes. Okay. I'll give you a comparison. I think he's like a Scholes type of guy.
Okay.
When he is on the ball, he's great, but it's the players around him. You get your Murillos, you get your Morgan Gibbs-Whites, you get the Ilangas, and those guys sort of making him look good.
So the team as a whole kind of protects him. Is that what you're saying? Are you saying he's not good enough?
No, the team does not protect him. He's a great signing. He is a great player. Yeah. But I feel like the team makes him look better.
Okay, cool.
Which is not a bad thing. Okay. So for me, the signing of the season, which is actually a kind of a tricky one, because these guys joined this team in January. Mm-hmm. They joined Aston Villa in January, both somewhat rejects or seen as underachievers at their previous clubs, and have come into Aston Villa in this January transfer window to come and put in some really amazing performances. I mean, they played in the Champions League quarterfinals, and I'm of course talking about Marcus Rashford and Marco Asensio.
No ways, not Rashford. Asensio, maybe. Definitely not Rashford.
Well, I feel like, just on that left wing, Marcus Rashford has definitely sort of improved the quality of their play.
Yeah, not improved though. I'm still struggling with getting a different Rashford than I saw at United beginning of the season, to be brutally honest with you.
Okay.
Very inconsistent. Hasn't really done anything that sort of warrants what you were saying, to be brutally honest.
Okay.
I also think, in fact, your earlier statement about Elliot Anderson applies to Rashford in the sense that he got into a system that is already working, and it's really on you to really mess it up at that point. Like, if the team is already performing very well, all you're going to do is just complement what's already there. So I don't think he's done anything different to his game. I still think he's a bit lazy. He's still not performing at the optimal Rashford that we know. And a lot of excuses have been made for him in the media to say maybe there's some personal things going on and stuff. However, I never really, like entertaining those chats because we're not talking about, problems. We're not doing a problems Olympics because everyone has problems. He's a professional at the end of the day. So for me, I think I wouldn't have him as signing of the season, especially this season. Asensio is a different conversation. I agree with you there.
No, okay, fair enough. I mean, I do agree. I mean, a guy like Morgan Rogers would have then sort of like outperformed Rashford
100%.
in that regard. And speaking of Morgan Rogers, I think it's time for us to move on to our next subject.
I'm surprised you didn't mention Milenkovic. Milenkovic for me is another one I think is up there in terms of signings of the season. But yeah, let's move on right along. Let's talk about some young players who pitched in this season.
Yeah.
And I have a couple of names here, but you know what I want us to do? I'll actually name the names, of which it's no secret. These are the players who were nominated this year. Right.
Yeah.
And I think all of them rightfully deserve to be nominated. William Saliba, Morgan Rogers, Cole Palmer, Ilanga, Delap. Who am I forgetting?
You missed out on Ryan Gravenbach and Dean Huijsen, of course.
That was deliberate. But anyway.
Yeah.
So Gravenbach obviously won it. But I do think there's an argument to be made for Cole Palmer, though.
Yeah. So
there's definitely an argument to be made for Cole Palmer because all of us can agree that Cole Palmer carried Chelsea to where it is this season.
No, I mean, I fully agree.
If you've watched their matches, there were matches where he literally had to drag them through the finish line.
Yes.
Alone at times.
I do see that. And I mean, Cole Palmer is suffering from the spotlight syndrome, where because you've put in such stellar performances, I mean, man of the match performances, even performance of the season type goals, or goal of the season type goals. When you start to dip, it becomes way too obvious. Unlike someone like a Ryan Gravenbach who plays, in a 6 role. If he has like an off day, he could easily be covered by the other midfielders on the field and by his defense. True. So his mistakes are far less obvious than Cole Palmer.
That's actually a very good point.
And another point is when he's not around, it's easy for them to sort of like plug that hole by changing the shape. I'm talking about Ryan Gravenbach. Yeah. But when Cole Palmer's not there, it's very glaring.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Also because of his other team members, you know what I mean? So when a Mo Salah is not playing, it's not as obvious. We could plug with a Harvey Elliott. Yeah. When Bukayo Saka is not playing, it is pretty obvious with Arsenal, but they can sort of mitigate that with like playing, some of the younger players that are really coming up just because of how solid everyone else is. I mean, you get your Odegaard, Rice, and those guys playing through the middle, so it makes it a little bit less obvious. So I do agree with you. But my problem with Cole Palmer is that he hasn't played enough.
In what sense?
He's been injured. I mean, he was injured for a decent enough portion of the season that Ryan Gravenbach would overtake. So had Cole Palmer played every single match of the season up until game week 36 like Ryan Gravenbach, then we would have at least been able to, you know what I mean, compare. Okay. But that's just, it's obviously it's not of any fault of his own, but it's just the reality.
I'll say this about Ryan Gravenbach though. He surprised me, to be honest, and I don't think I'm the only one. I think when the season started, he was one of the guys that I saw falling through the cracks with the new coach. I didn't actually think Arne Slot was going to favor him. I was pleasantly surprised at his performances, and not only his performances, his consistency, actually. Because I will say this, I was actually looking more to McAllister. However, I got more performances from him in terms of, in the tough times, if you watch matches where Liverpool were trailing, right? He was the one holding the glue in the midfield, more than McAllister at times, right? Yes. McAllister has moments where he pops up, especially when the team is in a good flow and stuff. But I've always questioned what happens when the team is not in a flow, because this is where you need characters now to come and play. And I think Gravenbach is actually on the trajectory of being one of those character players where he can actually lead and call upon the team and say, guys, let's keep the shape. You know, we're just losing by a goal. Let's not panic, type of situation. So I think there's definitely a leader growing there in Gravenbach. And I think if he keeps to the same trajectory, he's definitely one of the young greats. There. I think you guys got a player there.
I definitely agree. But the thing that I have that's concern about Ryan Gravenbach is the fact that he's playing out of position. That cannot be overlooked. And it is like a bit of a red flag that kind of like beeps in the minds of Liverpool fans, because he's playing great as a 6. Liverpool at the end of last season were looking to sign a 6. We did not sign a 6. We stayed with Wataru Endo, and we stayed with a McAllister who's a makeshift 6, and then we took Ryan Gravenbach and placed him as a 6. So Liverpool literally does not have a single 6. We're hoping for the return of Stefan Bajcetic. We're hoping that he's stronger now, because when he left, he went out on loan because he was not physically up to scratch. So when Ryan Gravenbach eventually gets to play the role that he wants to play, which is sort of like a left-sided 10, or an 8, will we then see Ryan Gravenbach exit, or will we see him embrace the role, much like Trent did at the right-back position? Because Trent, similarly to Ryan, he asked the coach. Trent asked Jurgen Klopp, Ryan Gravenbach asked Arne Slot, I just want minutes in the game. Put me anywhere. So will he stay in that role and then look like he's progressing, like Trent did on the wing or in the midfield? And
judging by the mentality, if you're telling me that's something that you asked the coach for, then I would assume it's a player who wants to play football. If anything, they don't care. Just put me on the pitch. And it's a player that wants to help the team. Again, alluding to my leadership qualities that I spoke of. That's what a leader does. You know, he's more concerned about, 1, getting minutes, 2, helping the team. So I don't think it's a bit of an issue per se. If anything, looking at how he's adapted to the role, he might actually grow into the role.
Right, so let's get into the next topic.
Okay.
Standout moments of the season. Right, so thank you so much for preparing this, by the way. Cox has prepared a few key moments, which I agree with, and we're going to go through them and then try to decide between the two of us, which one we think is the best, is the most standout. Crystal Palace winning a trophy, their first major trophy in their history.
In their history, actually.
Yeah. Spurs finally winning a trophy after a disastrous season, and they earn a Champions League spot. Very, very, very tricky subject, that one. I want to get into that one.
At our expense, by the way, as Man United. But anyway, continue.
Newcastle winning their first League Cup ever, beating Liverpool. And the final topic, there could be 6 Premier League teams in the Champions League next season.
So standout moment this season, for me, I think I'll always go for the underdog. So I think the Crystal Palace story is a beautiful story. It makes for a great narrative in a sense that, let's be fair, 2 seasons ago, Crystal Palace was fighting relegation. And to be honest with you, it's one of those teams that just phased out to an extent, especially when they lost, who's the guy who was their main guy on the flank?
Wilfred Zaha.
Wilfred Zaha. When they lost Zaha in the transfer market, for me, it said there was no threat going forward. They were leaking at the back. And I think how they've bounced back from all of that in the midst of, you also need to consider the league has gotten so competitive at the top. You know, in the midst of all of that, they've regrouped, they've trusted in their players, graduated a couple of youngsters into the team, and essentially put, you know, a lot of trust in players like Mateta, who has basically, you know, at least, you know, shown that he can lead from the front, and he's done wonders for them. So I think just off of that whole narrative arc, you know, I think Crystal Palace for me stands out. I think it's one of those that I never saw coming. I know, for instance, Liverpool winning the league, for me, it was a surprise, to be brutally honest with you. You know, the trajectory from last season into winning a league this season was a total surprise. And I think that also we should not underplay. However, I think the Crystal Palace story was one where it just came out of nowhere for us casual fans. Maybe Crystal Palace people might have seen it, but for us casual fans who watch the team week in, week out, it was just something that was just interesting. And how they did it too. I mean, to beat City, bro.
To beat Man City,
yeah, you know, and a comeback City, because City's coming back slowly but surely. You know, so it's not a weakened City side. It was a City side that was up on confidence. It was starting to rebuild, you know, starting to get some of their players back, you know. So they did it in style in that regard. And even when you look at their journey, the teams that they had to beat to get to City. So I think the Crystal Palace story for me is one that stands out more than the Newcastle, more than the Spurs. I understand the Newcastle one, but I think the Newcastle one, we kind of saw signs in the late of last season. We kind of see signs of an upward trajectory, even how they started the season.
So you're equating it to like a shock moment of the season.
Yes, for me that was like because of it was quite a shocking to the system. I see it as a standout moment.
For me, I wouldn't add that in the standout moments of the season.
Okay,
I do understand that. What the moment is for me that you're speaking about is a small team winning the FA Cup, right? Cool. And then you start getting into like the nuances of that small team,
100%.
And it just so happens to be Crystal Palace.
100%.
So by that I mean there has been many seasons where a small team does something astonishing, wins the FA Cup, wins the the League Cup, the Carabao Cup now.
Wins the league.
Leicester in 2016. And that type of thing does tend to happen. So that's the reason why I would disqualify the Crystal Palace moment.
Okay.
For them, like you just said, as a fan, that is like probably the standout moment of your season. But generally from a Premier League perspective, I don't think that moment was that special. I want to focus on Newcastle winning their first League Cup ever. We're going to get into that one. But Spurs winning a trophy after a disastrous season, let's start there, right? Earning themselves a spot in the Champions League. By the way, they may not have a Champions League trophy, but Spurs, I mean, they beat Madrid in the semi-finals and lost to Liverpool 2-0. They actually ended up in the Champions League final, not so in recent history.
That's true, actually. It's not so long ago. It's
not so long ago.
4 or 5 seasons ago.
2021.
Yeah.
So for me, like that, breaking that curse for a team as big as Spurs. I mean, we all regard Spurs as sort of like the A minus in terms of like the A class teams. You know,
True.
We have your typical teams: Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, and now Man City.
Yeah.
In fact, I would actually place Spurs above Man City in terms of A class teams in England, historically speaking.
Okay.
So I think because that moment would have meant more to more people.
City fans are watching you like, are you mad? What are you
Yes,
talking about?
Because this moment would have meant more to more people. There are definitely more Spurs fans.
Yeah.
And the Spurs fans you meet are people that maybe have dropped off in terms of their commenting on the sport. But they still are out there.
I get what you're saying. Look,
Yes.
I'm yet to come across a 45-year-old who's a City fan.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I know I knew of Spurs fans back in 2008, for example. But back in 2008, there weren't too many City fans. Let's keep it a buck, right? They just mushroomed, all of a sudden, and understandably so.
This is how you get fans.
100%. I get what you're saying. So yes.
Yeah. So Newcastle winning their first League Cup ever. I mean, to me, that is a Alexander Isak story.
Okay.
Alexander Isak has been the difference for Newcastle this season.
For sure.
I mean, we do look at teams like Aston Villa. You can even have a look at a team like a West Ham, where in Nottingham Forest, they have such amazing players, have so many great players, but you always need that player that's going to grab the team by the scruff of the neck and move them over the line.
True.
So Isak is to Newcastle what Mo Salah is to Liverpool.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, dude, Dan Burn, all these guys, Kieran Trippier.
Yeah.
On the left, you got
your Joe Linton's.
Joe Linton.
Yeah.
Man, Newcastle's team, Tonali.
Yeah.
I mean, Tonali came and he's
he fit like a glove.
Fit like a glove.
Yeah.
I mean, quality is very, very obvious and glaring to you. But so many other teams have similar type of things. You know what I mean?
Got you.
I mean, if you want to compare Tonali to a McGinn, for instance, come on. You know what I'm saying? If you want to compare Dan Burn to Mikalenko,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So when you start making those type of arguments, you can see why Newcastle can just be a normal team. Mm-hmm. And for me, Isak had then dragged them over the line. But still, the Spurs situation, as a stand-up moment of the season, that to me definitely is head and shoulders above the others.
Really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have expected that, eh?
Yeah, now for me, it's Spurs winning their first the trophy after such a disastrous season. You also have to look where they are. Newcastle is fighting for top 4.
Okay.
So them beating Liverpool in the final is not as surprising.
Got you.
To be fair, they did beat Manchester United.
True.
Who's sitting 16.
But then again, everyone beat Manchester United this season.
Exactly.
So what are we talking about?
So I guess then for them, the victory would have been winning the semi-final.
So speaking of a disastrous season, I'm segueing here.
Yeah.
Arsenal. Are they edging closer to winning the league? Or are they just stagnant and we're making excuses for them? And I ask this question because Arsenal fans would argue that they are on the road to progression and they're just missing a few screws to tie up this ship, right? However, I've seen the media having double standards when it comes to Arsenal. Because I'll make you an example, actually. Manchester United, under Jose Mourinho, finished second.
Yes.
Manchester United, under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, finished second and third.
Yes.
Actually, third, then second.
Yes.
That was actually seen as progress. In fact, I'm lying. It wasn't seen as progress because people were bashing Ole. Even though it was counter-attack football, whatever the case might have been. But it wasn't good enough, right? And in this context, I don't see where the difference is outside of the style of play.
I mean, on paper, ask anyone, go back to my social media. I had said Arsenal to win the Champions League.
Okay.
Right?
This season.
I had said Arsenal at the end of last season were looking like the best team in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Arsenal on paper should be the best team in the Premier League right now.
Why on paper?
Look at their players.
But their players, dog, they don't have a striker though.
Without a striker, I mean, which team has a striker? Not every team has a striker. Chelsea doesn't have a striker. Liverpool doesn't have a striker. City doesn't have a striker.
But Liverpool, the argument would be that their forwards at least are goal scoring. If we look at the average that Saka, Martinelli, Trossard have combined in comparison to Gakpo, Salah, Diaz, it's a different story. Because if you're not going to play with a centre forward, your front three there needs to be a balance in terms of goal scoring.
I hear where you're coming from, and I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about Liverpool now versus Arsenal now.
Yeah, but
We're
I mean,
talking
Havertz is not going to get you more than 11 goals a season. Who Sterling currently is not going to get you even more than 10 a season. Saka is not going to get you more than 15 a season.
I do hear you. But look at how Arsenal was performing towards the end of last season. Look at how Arsenal performed in the Champions League against teams like Madrid, right?
Gotcha.
So me being a Liverpool fan, I'm the last person to tell you that you don't have a specific player and that a different player can't come in and fulfill such a role, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Now I was playing devil's advocate.
No,
when you said they have the best squad. But
no, I really do.
I was playing because I think even Arsenal fans would argue that they're not quite there yet in terms of squad depth. It looks like they do on paper, but like I do think when you look at previous winners of the title, the squad depth was always
how did Jurgen Klopp develop squad depth? Do you think squad depth is bought or is made?
It's both.
It's both.
It's both.
It's both, right?
Yeah, it's both.
But I mean, me as a Liverpool fan, that argument to me has never made sense when I look at my team.
Yeah, because
right?
you're also speaking from a point of wait. I'm not gonna allow you to do that.
Wait, let me finish.
You speak but you're not gonna liken this to a Liverpool situation, and I'll tell you why. Okay, maybe you might actually have a point because your board is just as shrewd as Arsenal's board.
Our boards are very shrewd.
Very similar.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, especially a player like Mikel Arteta.
Got you. Okay.
Someone who comes from a Premier League supporting role, where his role would be to develop players
100%.
at Man City under Pep Guardiola, and then to come to Arsenal and then like lack that
so in
ability
essence,
of like sort of like making sure that the second player in every position is fulfilled, but not just that, but these guys get chances and they perform on that high level.
If I'm understanding you correctly, are you alluding to a point that Mikel Arteta hasn't developed enough?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay,
I believe Mikel Arteta has not developed enough. And
I mean, who's from the youth ranks? Top of mind, Martinelli. Yeah, Lewis Skelly, Saka. How is that not enough? Because those are starters. All of those guys that you just named are starters. I can't even imagine the starting 11 without those guys. Yeah.
Okay, but I suppose you can't really compare Arteta to a club.
Yeah, you
I
can't.
mean, literally, Klopp's kids won the FA Cup against Chelsea.
Yeah.
Like a whole bunch of kids. So that was pretty much insane. But anyways, let's not digress.
Yes. So let's answer the question. The question at hand is Arsenal progressing or are they stagnant in the grand scheme of things?
I really think they're stagnant. And it's a type of stagnation that I think Mikel Arteta really needs to listen to Erling Haaland's advice and be a bit more humble. And I know it sounds comical, it is funny, but it's 100% the truth. I mean, Mikel Arteta speaks as though wins are guaranteed in the toughest league in the world.
But
you know what I'm saying? Even in the Champions League, the way he speaks, the confidence he exudes, it's not a I'm confident in my players.
Let me
it's
rebut
like I'm going
that.
to win.
Let me rebut that, though.
Confidence.
Let me rebut that.
Okay.
Prior to Arteta coming on board, Arsenal has always been accused of having a loser mentality.
Okay.
They never could believe that they could go over the line. Hence, they were always called the chokers.
100%.
So, I think he's leading from the front as a coach, as he should.
Right.
To instill a certain mentality, and I think it's working a bit, because when you look at players like Declan Rice and the comments that they make when they speak to media, they're starting to believe that they can actually cross the line. So it's a mentality thing. I don't think you can criticize him for actually even just speaking that.
I don't think it's a mentality thing. You can still be a loser saying that you're going to win. Right? Yeah. It's not about you saying that you're going to win. It's about winning. So, for instance, a guy like Declan Rice, he's justified because Declan Rice is a winner. Declan Rice has a European trophy with West Ham.
Yeah.
You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I get
so, it's not the same thing.
But Arteta is a winner, though.
What? As a player?
As a coach.
Where?
With City. What are you talking about?
He's not a coach. He was not head coach.
But he's part of the technical team, so he understands. He's from that fabric, is what I mean.
Well, clearly
he gets it.
He's clearly shown that he doesn't. Because he's not winning anything. He's not brilliant. Right?
You're discrediting this guy, bro.
No, hang on. I don't.
Also, he won the FA Cup, bro. What are you talking about?
How long ago?
That's 5 seasons ago, bro.
That's very long ago, man.
This guy.
So what I'm saying is
your point doesn't stand, because he is a winner. And he knows what he's talking about. And all he's trying to do is instill that in the young players and in the players who are still from the old Arsenal mindset. Because that can also really be the reason why these guys are not crossing the line.
I think Arsenal players get complacent and stagnant based on a false sense of success. I think Arteta could take a page out of Eddie Howe's book, be humble, but still confident in your abilities. There's a difference. I don't think Arteta is confident in his team's abilities, but he's very arrogant in saying that they will still win. You see, they're swapping the two things around. There's a difference there's a difference between what Eddie Howe does and versus what Mikel Arteta does.
Let's agree to disagree on this point, because I think your point is very unfair on Mikel, but it's fine. I get it. I understand what you're saying, but I don't agree with it.
You could argue that I'm saying hindsight, but I might have said this at the beginning of the season as well.
So the answer to the question is that Arsenal are stagnant.
Arsenal are stagnant.
Okay, I agree with you on the point. I just think from a neutral's perspective, Arsenal seem like they're progressing, but I do think this was their season. This was Arsenal's season. And it was for, actually, the right phrase is, this season was for Arsenal to lose. Yes. Because when people started seeing that City are definitely not the City that they are of old, and they're fatigued and the injuries and everything, everyone was looking to Arsenal. No one saw Liverpool coming. Even despite the run of form that Liverpool had in that first 10 games, right? People still said, yeah, sure, but this is Arsenal's season.
Yes.
Right? And I think when you have that sort of backing, not only from the media, but even just from casual fans, right? I think all of us were looking at Arsenal to say, yo, this is the season for you to prove yourself. You've had, and I do think that they are also victims of their own doings, because I think that January window was crucial. And I think this has been said. It's not new information. That January window was very crucial. And if they were serious about winning,
they would have signed
a striker in that window. And chances are we'd be talking a different situation right now, in a sense of they could have either won the league or the Champions League. That was the difference, literally. Even both, actually.
To me, then, if we're talking about that January transfer window, I think just in the lack of evidence to the truth of what I'm saying, I think that's a symbol of exactly that, where a manager is not humble enough to go and sign a striker saying that his team is good enough, but if at the end of the day they're not being
No, man. I don't think you can even
Yeah.
point it to him because if his hands are tied, he's not the one cutting the check. So if he has conversations behind the scenes
Can't
where
promote.
he's told that, dude,
Arsenal
there's
can't
no
promote.
money right now,
Arsenal
you
can't
need to
promote.
wait for the summer.
a striker.
Dude, I don't know. I don't watch the youth levels of Arsenal, so I wouldn't know. I just know they really have a good youth structure.
And
that I do know
towards
because
the end of last
we
season-
signed 2 players as United from their youth structures.
Yeah.
And looking at the guy that we signed, Heaven,
Yeah.
I would definitely say that they've been sleeping on their players. So maybe
Which
you
is
have
exactly
a point.
my point.
Maybe you have a point. So
Yes.
I think we're spending too much
We're
time on
spending-
Arsenal.
yeah, okay, let's
Let's
move
move on to the next one.
All promoted sides are back in the championship.
By the way, congratulations to Sunderland. They got promoted.
Shout out to Sunderland.
Shout out to Sunderland. But
And Leeds, if I'm not mistaken.
yes, is the relegation battle becoming predictable?
Look, I think yes, but I don't think the relegation battle being predictable is an indictment on the league. Although they do need to fix it,
Okay.
right? I do feel that maybe a little bit more support needs to be given to the championship. I think a lot more investment needs to be put in there.
I was about to say.
Yes. So
I'm inclined to agree with you there because I think it has more to do with the financial aspect
yeah.
more than anything. Because I mean, if you look at teams such as Ipswich, right? I do think they were very naive in their approach.
As always.
they,
Any promoted side. looks
yeah,
naive.
I mean, they could have taken a leaf off of Burnley's book. Is it Burnley?
Got relegated.
Got relegated. Yeah.
Yes, it was Burnley.
Yeah, they
with
could-
Vincent Company.
Yes, they could have taken a book from Burnley's book and looked at, you know, when you get to, like you're saying, there's been progress in terms of how competitive the league has been, the
Yeah.
EPL, right? And I don't think you can compete at that level if you don't have the quality to match. A
Yeah.
typical example is 2 seasons ago, Forest were facing relegation. And they'd just been promoted too. Let's
Yeah.
not forget that,
Yes.
right?
Then they got a cash injection.
They got a cash injection and they were buying everyone. And
Yeah.
people were criticizing them, in fact, for that. They were
Yes.
saying, like, no, Forest is just buying players, right?
Yes.
But when you look at what is happening now, you know,
You're seeing the results.
you're seeing the results. I mean, your Callum Hudson-Odois,
Ilanga.
your Ilangas, they look like different players there.
Yeah.
Because they're given the freedom and they're the star players there,
Yes.
right? And they are, most importantly, Premier League tested, which I think is the difference when you look at these championship teams that
Yes.
get promoted. Most of the players, they are not, you know, Premier League tested, and as a result, it becomes a body shock to them when they see the levels.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, every time you watched an Ipswich game this season, you could see the difference in terms of the intensities, the levels, you know, as opposed to the other teams.
Yes.
So I do think that the financial aspect has a lot to do with that. But having said that, though, it becomes tricky then because most of these clubs don't have the financial injection
Yeah.
to be able to compete at that level financially. How do we fix that?
Right. I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
Obviously, because I'm not a financial person.
Yeah.
But I do want to rebut the point of the body shock point.
Yeah.
And I want to start by saying I'm incredibly disappointed in Leicester and Southampton.
100%.
These are Premier League sides.
100%.
Foxes
100%.
Foxes in the sort of like from the 2010s only.
Yeah.
Fair enough to them.
Yeah.
Maybe late 2000s.
Dude, these are league winners. What are we talking about?
Yes. so if we take it from that point, right,
Yeah.
as a departure point, we say you won the Premier League. That's a massive cash injection. You should really be doing a lot, you know.
And besides winning the league too, let's not forget they had a clearance of sale in the following season to that. I mean,
yes, they sold the whole
80% of their squad
Yeah,
is
Mahrez
sold.
and them.
Yeah.
But let's look at the players that are currently getting relegated.
Okay.
Right? So I do know that it is a cash injection in that type of situation.
Yeah.
But I think it's more of like a psychological team thing, the lack of belief. Because I mean, if you had to compare a Fulham team, for instance,
Yeah.
with a Leicester, they got Connor Cody, a Premier League player.
Used to be at Everton, if I'm not mistaken.
Used to be at Everton. They've got Vestergaard,
Yeah.
compared to Virgil van Dijk at times. They've got players like Harry Winks, Wilfred Ndidi, James McAteer. What's his name? Casey McAteer. Oh, he's a young gun. So okay, fine. Jamie Vardy,
Yeah.
Patson Daka. Jordan Ayew.
Those are Premier League.
I'm talking about proven Bobby Decordova-Reid. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think he came from Fulham, if I'm not mistaken. These are players that like literally know how to play in the Premier League.
Agreed.
So I'm saying this to say that I don't think these teams getting relegated is that much of an indictment on the league itself.
Okay.
Even though there is a financial situation, a financial story that can be told here, you know what I mean? Like, but for instance, now let's look. You're probably gonna want to rebut me on this one. Liverpool didn't sign anyone.
Yeah.
How many players has Liverpool really signed over the past couple of years, and for how much?
Yeah.
You know, if you put Ryan Gravenberch, Alexis McAllister, Dominic Szoboszlai, and Wataru Endo, we signed all four of them in one window.
Yeah, but let's not forget, in the past 3 seasons, the signings that you've made in the past 3 seasons actually won you this title.
No.
Let's be fair.
No, listen, I am agreeing with you.
Yes.
I know that.
Let's
right?
be fair.
But what I'm saying is they need to make. So I'm obviously putting Liverpool as the opposite spectrum of it.
Okay.
With very few signings and a maximum result.
Okay, cool.
So what I'm saying is the truth is somewhere in the middle where sign players that are going to give you that effect.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not always about, oh, we can't make an £80 million signing. I mean, I just mentioned 4 people that cost nowhere near £80 million.
Got you.
You get what I'm trying to say? So the relegation battle in the Premier League, I don't think it's foregone that if you get promoted, you'll then be relegated the next season. I really do think like a team like Leeds, even though they've been promoted and relegated like 3 times in the past 10 years or something like that.
So, yeah.
But I still believe that like teams like that can come through, change their minds about how they want to approach the Premier League and succeed.
I
mean, we've seen teams do it. We've seen Fulham do it. We've seen Brighton and Hove Albion did it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think
even Forest, you just spoke about Forest.
Nottingham Forest.
Yeah.
What else? Let me have a look at some of these teams here. Teams such as Brentford.
Brentford
is also somewhat a new boy in the Premier League. And how are they performing?
Yeah.
Literally, all 4 of the teams we mentioned are in the top 10. In that order, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
That's crazy.
You know what I'm saying? These are teams that have come from relegation.
Yeah.
I mean, what's his name? Harvey Elliott played for Fulham and helped them get promoted into the Premier League, and then came back to Liverpool. You get what I'm trying to say?
I get you.
Yeah, you get players that, just because a team got promoted does not mean anything. There's not really an indictment on the quality of their players, to be very fair.
Fair. Let's move on. Coach of the season. Do you want to open the discussion for us?
I can. I feel like I'm running a filibuster here. But to me, it's obviously clear. Man comes in, signs no one. Where's the league? Man comes in, signs no one, changes 5%,
Yeah.
moves a player out of position.
Yeah.
Player of the season, young player of the season,
Please.
coach of the season.
Oh, please. Oh, please. Come
The
on.
only correct answer is Arne Slot. But honorable mention to
Honorable
Nuno
mention.
Espirito Santo.
Honorable mention.
Honorable mention. You get honorably mentioned if you don't win.
Bruh. So I think there's a case to be made for 2, actually. And I think the other one falls away on the basis of results at the end of the seaon. And I think, so for me, it's Nuno and Unai Emery. Right? Mm-hmm. And Unai falls short on the basis of what is the result at the end of the season. Right? Have they achieved something? But when we say coach of the season, for me, I think we speak more to the attributes that the coach imposes onto the team to achieve results. All right? And I think when you look at Forest, prior to Nuno, it's day and night, right? Not only in the players' confidence, but confidence can be attributed by results. So we're not going to touch base too much on the confidence, but let's look at how they tactically apply themselves within matches, right?
Yes.
How they impose their game on their opponents, which is what I've seen a lot of, actually. Even when they're playing the so-called big teams, they impose themselves onto the team they're playing against. They don't actually succumb. Irrespective whether they're playing a possession-based team or not, they still impose their game on it. Similarly to Villa, you're correct. Villa has changed the way that they play completely. It's a different Villa that we're watching.
Absolutely.
Top-class coaching. I think you see players that were there prior and how they play now, you're like, wait, what happened? You know, and it's again testament, I'd give credit to the coach, right? Shifted things around when he got there, made some unpopular decisions.
And suddenly they have squad depth.
There's that too, and that's
Which
also
exactly my
that's
point
also
about
but also that's also
Arteta.
but that's
Okay.
I get you.
You make your own squad depth.
I get you, and you are right, because as a coach, he was very insistent on that. I remember he was in his early days; those are the things he spoke about a lot during his interviews, and I think he was smart because he was applying pressure to the board to say, "Guys, I'm here. I'll do this, but like only if you guys support me." And the fans were also applying pressure as a result of his speaking out.
I want to say that when you do that, you don't only apply pressure to the board, but what you do is you actually catalyze and inspire the academy players.
Oh, yes.
That is something that will definitely
That's an aspect
happen.
I actually didn't think about. That's true.
I mean, even under Unai Emery, you would have to argue that even though Arteta did come in, promote them, like the Mayo Martinelli's, Bukayo Saka's, but where were they getting that world class, that top, inspired youth, training? I personally believe it was under Unai Emery.
Oh, at Arsenal, I forgot about that. I actually forgot about that stint.
Yes, so I do agree.
You are right.
I do agree with you. So in that regard, then.
So from a coaching,
we put Nuno above.
No, I put Nuno
Emery above Nuno.
No, I put Nuno above Emery on the basis of a result. Wait. No, I'm confusing things. Sorry.
Yes.
I'm confusing things. Yeah.
Well, I suppose you. Okay, wait. Let me give you a preamble.
Yeah.
It's not Unai Emery's first season.
Yes.
So maybe if you had to compare Nuno's this season
to
last season.
100%.
So then I see why you would say that Nuno could be above.
But then no. But then I see where you're going with this, because that then lands your argument about Arne Slot.
You're the one saying
this guy
it for
makes
Nuno.
his leg, bro.
No, okay, fine. Okay, fine. You're saying Nuno.
But no.
First season. You're saying because it's his first season.
No.
He goes above.
No. That's not what I'm saying. Saying. Right?
It's not because of where he is, what season he's in.
No. There's a case to be made for Eddie Howe, and I hear your earlier argument when you were speaking about Newcastle, and you said Isak was sort of carrying the team.
Yes.
But you also can't undermine or undervalue who brought about that sort of confidence in Isak.
100%.
You know, and also even that, because Isak has always been there. That's the other thing that's the crazy thing about it. But the Isak we've seen this season is a different beast from what we've known, right? And that's also down to the coaching and the belief that the coach has had in him, right? So I think there's also an argument to be made about Eddie Howe, bro. Because Eddie Howe, unlike Unai and Nuno, he actually has a result.
He has a trophy.
He has a trophy.
Right.
Right.
Now,
yeah.
Apply the same logic
Yeah.
that you just applied to Unai Emery,
Yeah.
Nuno,
Yeah,
and Eddie
and
Howe
Eddie, yeah.
to Arne Slot.
Arne, my criticism of Arne is, for me, he had it easier than the guys. He had it easier, and I'll tell you why. No, he did. He had it easier in the sense that Arne Slot had time and had the privilege of watching what was happening with Klopp and having a bird's eye view. And I'll give him credit for one thing. He knew that I don't have to rock the boat. I just have to keep it as it is and make a few tweaks. Yes.
Yeah.
And just work on the personnel. So he was more man managing than actual tactical managing.
That is one of the hottest takes I've heard about Arne Slot ever, because one of the big things that people praise him on is how different his play style is from Jurgen Klopp's.
From last season.
Bro, with Klopp, the main thing about it is Jurgen Klopp wanted possession-based football. Nah. Versus Arne Slot, where he actually gives the ball away. This is, by the way, statistically...
The criticism I've heard was the gaps in midfield.
Of who?
Of Slot.
Gaps in our midfield?
Yes, in comparison to... You are right, because then with Klopp, you had possession.
We hold possession.
Yes, but Slot was more rock and roll.
Arne Slot, no. Klopp, Jurgen Klopp is rock and roll. Nah?
Yeah. But with possession.
With possession.
Yeah.
We had very high possession stats last season.
In comparison to this season.
Slot, let me give you a stat.
Yeah.
Is the coach that has won the Premier League with one of the lowest possession overall.
Really?
Go check it out. Google it. Check it out. We've had very little possession. We rely on turning the ball over and attacking immediately. Virgil van Dijk doesn't hold the ball as much as he did. Think about Virgil van Dijk this season. Do you see him on the ball in your mind?
No, not at
Last season, a lot. Last season, you definitely see him on the ball. Right?
So you are saying, from a tactical point of view, he made changes.
He's made a lot of tactical changes, especially when it comes to even player positions, right? He doesn't favor Trent Alexander-Arnold, for instance.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And I mean, the Liverpool, the way we were playing, we've prioritized that. You know what I mean?
No, but even
we did.
To be made around.
Mo Salah is no longer in possession anymore. He's more of an assisting player in the 24-25 season. Mo Salah gives a lot of assists this season compared to last season or any other season before, in fact. Even when he had Bobby Firmino and Sadio Mane.
But how is he giving away a lot of assists if he's the main guy in terms of goal scoring?
Check the statistic. He's got more. He's got he's 3 assists away from the league record set by Thierry Henry.
Yeah, but that's overall, bro.
No,
You're saying in a single season.
In a single season. This season, Mo Salah is about to set a record, but obviously he won't set it because it's the last game. I think he was 2 or 3 or 4 goals away, assists away from the season assist record. Yeah. Let me correct myself here. Most assists in a Premier League season. Kevin De Bruyne and Thierry Henry are tied for most assists in a Premier League season with 20 assists. Right?
Most assists this season.
In a season.
No, say Google that, this season.
Yes, 18. Do you understand what I mean?
I got you.
So he's taking the same players and changing their roles. Klopp used to play McAllister as a 6-esque because he didn't play Ryan Gravenberch. He played Wataru Endo sometimes. Now Maka is playing as a full 10. He's wearing the number on his back properly. He's playing as a 10. Dominic Szoboszlai didn't get a lot of shine with him.
Yeah, he didn't.
Now, Dominic Szoboszlai is the workhorse of the team, as he was always meant to be. You see what I mean? So I'm agreeing with you that he took, he did a lot of personnel change,
Yeah.
right? But that led to, it was based on a tactic. It was based on a tactical approach. I mean, for instance, Klopp would not, if Andy Robertson is fit, he plays, right?
Because that's the preferred.
That's his preferred. With Slot, Kostas Tsimikas and Andy Robertson are fighting for position for starts every single game.
Yeah, because that's a new coach, bro.
But I'm talking about, for instance, Klopp liked Jarrell Kwanzaa. He would build Jarrell Kwanzaa as a centre back. Slot benched him immediately. You know what I'm saying? So new coach, new tactics. He didn't keep Slot's tactics. He kept Slot's team.
Yeah, but then aren't you somewhat...
Luis Diaz as a 9? Who's that?
Wait, aren't you somewhat alluding to my point when I say then it was better man management? Because then he understood the players a bit more and knew how to cultivate the players.
In a tactic.
Yes, better.
In a new tactic. Luis Diaz as a 9. Jurgen Klopp insisted on either playing Diogo Jota and Darwin Núñez only. He never played Luis Diaz as a 9. He'd rather play Mo Salah as a 9.
But Slot was playing Jota a lot as a 9 this season.
Yeah, I mean, Diogo Jota played a lot as a 9, but Luis Diaz also. Probably the number 1 9, I'd say, from this season. Well, actually, it's both of them. It was be Luis Diaz and Diogo Jota.
Okay, cool, fair.
You get what I'm trying to say?
For me, I think my criticism is more so on, I would honestly, if he repeats the same brilliance this season, I'd give him credit.
Shout out.
You know,
But Nuno doesn't need to have brilliance
I still need
to win manager of the season?
I still need convincing. I would even say there's an argument for Eddie Howe.
Right. So your argument for Eddie Howe is the fact that he's won a trophy.
No, it's the fact that he's built the squad from scratch.
Okay, fair enough.
He built his own squad.
Over Nuno?
He's the one coach that actually said, okay, cool, I want that player, and criticized for some of his signings. Because people were like, bro, you have all this money from the Saudis and whatever, but you...
What's the difference between Nuno Espirito Santo and who previously in this video you've admitted that they had money to sign players? We named them.
Yes, for sure.
Ilanka Mikhailovic, all of these guys, right? He's had money to sign players.
Who, Nuno?
Nuno.
Cool.
Right? What's the difference then between Nuno, or he didn't sign the players came. They were signed.
Yeah.
Before he came, because it's been a season and a half.
Signings.
They were not his signings.
Yes.
But we agree that they are good signings.
Yes, 100%.
Difference between Nuno Espirito Santo and Anderson.
Wait. Those players weren't necessarily good signings. In fact, they were criticized for signing those players.
Liverpool.
Most of those players were so-called rejects.
Name a team that signs more rejects than Liverpool.
So Nuno actually
signed.
No. Actually
built
those players to be good.
Name a
team. A good team, actually.
Name a team that signs more rejects than Liverpool.
That's a lie, bro. You guys don't sign rejects. That's a lie.
Bro, we have every single one of our signings.
That's a lie.
Every single one.
McAllister wasn't a reject.
McAllister, we had Bruno Fernandes in his position, Enzo Fernandez in his position that we wanted to sign. They rejected us.
Yeah, but
then we got McAllister.
No, come on, bro. McAllister was sought after. You can't say he's a reject.
By who?
That's my point. McAllister had rumors of...
rumors.
Yes.
Let's talk about concrete offers. The only players that you can mention, Cody Gakpo could have gone to Manchester United.
Yes, we wanted Gakpo. Actually.
Yes.
We wanted Thiago.
Thiago Alcantara.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's a retired player.
After.
He must come in.
One who wanted him.
I think we got him for free.
Yeah, because he wanted to go to you guys.
Yeah.
We wanted it.
No, but come on, we're talking about.
So you can't say you guys signed rejects, bro.
Don't talk about old guys. Talk about guys that are fresh.
But your statement was
don't force a point. Don't force a point. Talk about like a young, hot player. Don't talk about Thiago. You can't make your argument using Thiago. Come on, bro.
Why not? Because
Okay, make a different one. Use someone young and fresh.
Gakpo.
Yeah, that's one.
But you just said Hamas, and I did.
That's one, though.
But you were making a point that you guys signed rejects, and I'm saying no.
Okay, fine. I'm saying,
and you still haven't substantiated your point.
I'm about to. Let's get to Nottingham Forest players.
And what was your point? Was on Nuno, right?
My point was on Nuno versus Arne Slot. To say that even though he did not sign the players, he came in and affected change to success.
True.
Right? Yeah. And then you then said the difference between him and Eddie Howe is that Eddie Howe has a trophy. Yeah, why you might put Eddie Howe above him.
100%.
Now, Arne Slot has both.
Yeah, there's an argument to be made for Arne Slot.
Coach of the season, he's done both. He's Eddie Howe and Nuno Espirito Santo in your assertions put together.
No, I'd say Eddie Howe.
He was even in the final that Eddie Howe won.
I'd say
Eddie Howe won a Carabao Cup.
So?
It's amazing. Yeah. Liverpool was in the Carabao Cup final.
Yes, and he beat Arne Slot.
Yes, he beat Arne Slot in the final.
Yes.
Arne Slot was top of the Champions League with no defeats. We lost our last game in the Champions League group stages because we were playing a second side.
In the grand scheme of things in the Champions League, being number one in the group
we were talking about.
Really mean anything.
Okay, well, we're comparing him to Nuno. Remember, who
No.
also has wait.
It was the three. It's Nuno, Eddie Howe, and him.
We're comparing all of them.
We've already knocked out Nuno on the basis.
Oh, we've knocked out Nuno.
Yes, because there's no result at the end of the season. That's
Right.
the point that we made.
Right.
So then we can't compare him to Arne and Eddie Howe.
Right, so we're comparing now to just Eddie Howe.
So now we're comparing to Eddie Howe, and I'm saying Eddie Howe.
Which do you think is a bigger trophy between?
Obviously, the league, bruh.
Oh, so now.
Obviously, the league. So that's what I'm saying.
So now coming into the team and affecting changes.
It's a bit unfair. What you're doing is what they always do with, when the team has already won, but because the pendulum shifted in the last 20 minutes or the last 10 minutes of the game, and this team scored 2 goals, and then quickly they change the man of the match, and now they say, no, man of the match is now in the winning team.
Did the pendulum shift? Did the pendulum shift in the last 10 minutes?
Obviously, because of the result.
Did the pendulum shift in the last?
But I'm saying.
Did the pendulum shift in the last 10 games?
Of what?
Of the league.
No, I'm saying because he's won the league, bro. We will say, yeah, sure. And I'm saying I'm not taking anything away from it.
He started that way, Cox.
Yes, no, I'm not taking anything away.
It was not just at the end. It was in the beginning.
I'm saying there's an argument to be made for a guy like Eddie Howe.
Yeah, there's an argument to be made, but it's still not a good enough argument for him to be a better
because
coach.
He didn't win the league. That's why.
What? Who? Eddie Howe.
Eddie Howe, yeah.
Oh, so but because he won the Carabao Cup, it strengthens his argument.
100%.
Arne Slot was in that final as well. They lost 1-0.
So,
by virtue of him also achieving that, you can also argue that he would have done the same amount of work.
Not necessarily, because you know why?
Because he didn't develop his own team.
No. You're comparing apples and bananas, and let me explain why. Right? In our earlier conversation, we're talking about Man United and why people considered Man United to be in a worse position when they were number 2.
Okay.
Right? Is because they were being judged on their standard. Now, Jurgen Klopp has set a standard at Liverpool.
Right.
So, when we expect Liverpool to compete in 4 or 3 different competitions at the highest level, we expect that.
Right. To compete.
Yes.
But not to win.
No. Even winning, actually. Both.
Which
when I say competing, at Liverpool, it was a disappointing season for them to come out where they came out in the Champions League. It's disappointing.
Against PSG, who's in the final.
Yes.
No.
It's disappointing.
Absolutely not.
It is. You can't make an excuse for them because they won the league. No. What do you mean, bro? When you say you got Liverpool is a top tier team. When you're a top tier team, let's look at Madrid. They're having one of their worst seasons. But when you compare that to an average team would say, yo, bro, there's nothing bad about that season. What do you mean they're having a bad season? Because of their standard. Liverpool, where they are now, should be in the final of the Champions League. should be winning the league, should be in the final of the Carabao Cup.
That is the biggest amount of cap I've ever heard.
What do you
We've
mean?
signed
Because-
no one. We have a brand new coach.
Bro.
Which brand new coach got to the final of the Champions League
What do you mean
without
you've signed-
making any
what do you mean
signings?
you've signed no one, whereas this team has been built over 3 years?
We've
What do you
signed
mean?
no one.
But this team has been playing together over 3 seasons, bro.
We've needed a striker.
Exactly my point.
Not
So
3
meaning-
seasons. Not 3 seasons. Ryan
Bro.
Gravenberch got signed last season. So did Alexis McAllister. It's 2
When
seasons.
did Gakpo get signed? When did Luis get signed?
No. You're saying the team. I'm talking
I'm
about
saying
starters.
the team that is playing right now.
But I'm
right?
talking about 3 starters.
Exactly. That's 3, bro.
And if you
how
take
many?
in
How
11.
many? Exactly.
That's 8 players.
Bro, 8 players have been playing together for 3 seasons. 8 players in the starting 11.
Right.
And you want to make an argument for 3.
Do
That's
we
my
not?
point.
Do we not?
And
Okay.
you saying that
How many
3
games did?
Wait. You
How many
saying
games
that
Ryan
3
Gravenberch play last
You
season?
saying that 3 is the reason where you guys is the reason you guys won the league? Is that your argument?
2 of them, 100%. McAllister and Ryan Gravenberch.
Bro, come on.
McAllister is not one of the players of the season.
Come on, bro.
Is McAllister not one of the best midfielders in the Premier League this season?
He's top 5 for sure, but he's not number
Out of
2
20.
or 1.
Out of 20. It's his second season.
But
Nkox, he's played under 2 coaches.
we're digressing.
How are they building when he's played under 2 coaches and it's his second season?
But we're digressing.
How can you say that when the young player of the season,
Yeah.
Ryan Gravenberch, never played last season, and it's his second coach at Liverpool?
But it's the same squad, is my point.
Bro,
It's the same squad.
it's
You
not
are
the same.
looking
These are
at
new
the
players,
team.
my brother.
This is the same squad, dog. If I come into a squad that is already well oiled, let's look at City for instance. When you got a guy like who's this guy who was at Villa?
Oh, Jack Grealish.
Jack Grealish, right?
Yeah.
You take a Jack Grealish, right? Puts him in the City squad. You take who else did they get?
Flop in the first season. First season flop.
Sharp. Doesn't matter, right? Okay, that doesn't actually make my point. The point I was trying to make.
All examples you choose don't prove your point.
Yeah, but the point I was trying to make is if the squad synergy is already there and it's built, right? And obviously when you make these signings, it's to strengthen the squad more than anything.
100%.
It's because you know that we are lacking in that area and that area. And once we have that piece of the jigsaw, which is missing, we will actually we'll get over the finish line, right?
Yeah. Okay, now I say something.
And what you are trying to say is to say, with these 3 players that came in, right? And the fact that, oh no, we haven't really signed anyone, right?
Not really, we haven't.
You say we haven't signed anyone, and therefore...
I didn't say that, it's the
no,
facts.
you say you haven't signed anyone, and therefore, this league win, should be seen as something way more impressive on that basis.
To the coach.
To the coach, sure. To the coach, I agree
That's
with
what we're arguing.
But, okay, cool.
That's literally what we're arguing about the fact that he's taken players that are not necessarily used to the team because it's only their second season in the team.
I concede. That's a good point because...
Ryan Gravenberch was on the sidelines under Klopp. He comes in, he's asked the coach, please, let me play anything.
That's a good point because most coaches are always asking for a window.
They're asking for a window.
I.e. Amorim at United, they
Slot asked for a window.
Yeah.
He did ask for a window, by the way. In Jan, he asked. When he started, he asked.
So I concede to the point. We'll give it to Arne. But yeah, I just felt like I think there's a point for anyhow. But I do
100%.
Your point is actually quite valid that this guy didn't have a window. He inherited a squad, and yet he still made magic with it.
Took those players and developed them into something that he wanted.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying?
Which is not a lot of coaches that can do that.
Accentuated their capabilities. Put Maka more forward as a 10. Stopped the possession-based play. More direct passing. Virgil van Dijk straight to Mo Salah. Mo Salah almost matching. Could potentially match, or if he can get 3 assists today against Crystal Palace, with Mo Salah, it's possible.
Gotcha.
Can overtake the most assists in a season. You know what I'm trying to say? That's a complete role shift.
I get you.
Even though it optically, like if you don't have a lot of ball knowledge, or which I must say, I must admit to myself that I couldn't necessarily see it, but I could just feel something's different.
Yeah.
I had to listen to other experts
Yeah.
explain that, no, he's more of a supplier now. He's more of a playmaker. Mo Salah, after 7 seasons of being a goal-scoring machine, you're going to turn him into a playmaker. You know what I'm saying? And then arguing that, no, you playing as a playmaker will actually even offer you more opportunities to score goals. And he then did. One of the highest GAs in Premier League history.
That's fair.
You know what I'm trying to say? And that's not just on Mo Salah. Yeah. Yes, he's player of the season, right? But he was made player of the season because of how Arne Slot had made him play.
Fair. So fair. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in to Pitch In. You can pitch in your comment in the comment section. Give us some constructive criticism. Let us know, what are areas of improvement. It is our first episode ever. And we're hoping to grow as we go from strength to strength. So please, we need your help in terms of insight, anything that we can add value, or that can add value rather to the show. Please let us know. And follow our socials, please. Still new, man. Pitch it.
Absolutely. Please comment, like, and subscribe, as they always say. We're not above saying comment, like, and subscribe. Pitch In is really a passion project that Nkox and I have had for a very, very long time. We're not doing this because this is our core career trajectory, but it's our passion. We're really, really passionate about football, more specifically the Premier League. So pitch in your efforts and support us, guys. Thank you.
And we're pitching out.
It's